How did the colonies go from loyal British citizens in 1763 to American revolutionaries in 1776? What happened to cause the change?
It all started after the French and Indian War with the Townshend Acts. The Proclamation of 1763 was issued October 7, 1763 by King George III. The purpose of this was to organize Great Britain's new North American empire and to stabilize relations with native North Americans by granting land west of the Appalachian Mountains to Indians and forbade colonists to settle there.
The Paxton Boys formed a vigilante group in response to fear and hatred of American Indians caused by the French and Indian War. They murdered 20 Indians in response to the Proclamation of 1763. This event was called the Conestoga Massacre.
The Sugar Act was a revenue-raising act passed by the Parliament of Great Britain on April 5, 1764. It reduced the rate tax on sugar, wines, coffee, and other foreign goods. The situation disrupted colonial economy by reducing markets to which colonies could sell amount of currency available to them for purchase of British manufactured goods. The Currency Act sought to protect British merchants and creditors from being paid in depreciated colonial currency. The policy created tension between the colonies and Great Britain and was cited as grievance in early American Revolution.
The Quartering Act was to ensure that British soldiers had adequate housing and provisions. The Stamp Act of 1765, a direct tax imposed by the British Parliament specifically on colonies of British America. The Declaratory Act, it stated that Parliament's authority was the same in America as in Britain and asserted Parliament's authority to make binding laws on American colonies.
The Boston Massacre was an incident on March 5, 1770, in which British redcoats killed 5 civilian men. An angry mob formed around a British soldier who was being verbally abused and harassed.
Eventually, more troops came to support him, but they too were assaulted and verbally threatened. They fired into the crowd without orders and instantly killed 3 men, with 2 more dying later. The Boston Massacre is widely viewed as foreshadowing the outbreak of the American Revolution. No lawyers in the Boston area wanted to defend the soldiers during the trial, but in the end, John Adams and Josiah Quincy Jr. defended the soldiers. The Committees of Correspondence were shadow governments organized by the patriot leaders of the 13 colonies. These committees became the principal channel for sharing information, shaping public opinion, and building intercolonial cooperation. The committees supported rebellion and resistance to British tyranny. The Tea Act was an act of Parliament of Great Britain whose objective was to undercut the price of tea smuggled into North American colonies. The colonists objected to the Tea Act for a variety of reasons, but especially because they believed it violated their rights to be taxed only by their own elected representatives.
The Boston Tea Party was a direct action by colonists in Boston against the British government and the East India Company that controlled all the tea coming into the colonies. On December 16, 1773, a group of colonists disguised as Indians boarded tea ships that were anchored in the harbor and dumped their tea cargo overboard into the Boston harbor. The Boston Tea Party was a key event in the growth of the American Revolution. Parliament responded in 1774 with the Intolerable Acts.
The Intolerable Acts were issued in direct response to the Boston Tea Party by the British Parliament. The Boston Port Act was the first of the acts passed, closed the port of Boston until the East India Company had been repaid for the destroyed tea. The Massachusetts Government Act altered the government of Massachusetts to bring it in under the control of the British government. The Administrations of Justice Act allowed the governor to move trials of accused royal officials colony or even to Great Britain if he believed the official could not get a fair trial in Massachusetts. The Quartering Act and the Quebec Act were also intolerable acts. Many colonists saw the intolerable acts as a violation of their constitutional rights and their colonial charters.
The First Continental Congress was held in response to the Intolerable Acts on September 5th, 1774. It was a convention of delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies. The purpose of the convention was to form boycott against British goods. Lexington and Concord were the first military engagements of the American Revolutionary War. The battles marked the outbreak of open armed conflict between Great Britain and the colonists. A Second Continental Congress was held to take charge of the war effort. This time, a convention of delegates from all 13 colonies met on May 10, 1775. They created a Continental Army out of the militia units around Boston and appointed George Washington as general. Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet called Common Sense on January 10, 1776, as an argument for freedom of British rule. It was basically used to gather the colonists against the British rule. The Declaration of Independence was signed July 4, 1776, as an act to declare the colonies were no longer a part of the British Empire, and it ended the American Revolutionary War. Patrick Henry, a founding father, led the movement for independence in Virginia in the 1700s. He is most famous for his "Give me liberty or give me death" speech. Samuel Adams, another founding father, was a leader of the American Revolution. He attended the First Continental Congress and helped guide Congress to the Declaration of Independence. John Adams was another highly influential and key founding father. He was a delegate of Massachusetts, assisted Jefferson in the writing of the Declaration, nominated Washington to be commander-in-chief, and persuaded Congress to approve his idea for separate state government. All these important events and people led the colonists from being loyal British citizens to American revolutionists and has gotten us where we are today.